the number one soft drink in the goddamn world. Not even soft drink, number one drink, liquid in the world. They were going to change the recipe of it. And they did all this marketing for it, and they unveiled new Coke.
And everyone hated it.
Everybody hated it.
Everyone said, this is the worst. This is awful. Please, please, please go back. And they said, okay. And then they brought out Coca-Cola Classic.
It was called Coca-Cola Classic. It wasn't called Coca-Cola. It was very specifically called Coca-Cola Classic.
And everyone said, oh, thank you so much. But everyone was like, but they took the opportunity to change the recipe. But no one knew because they'd gone through this new Coke, which was so wildly different that coming back to something that was even close was like, okay, thank you.
And the conspiracy at the time was, actually years later, that what they did was they took Coke off the market, Coca-Cola, so that they could change the recipe from sugar to high fructose corn syrup, which did happen. They did change the recipe, but the timing of it wasn't what people thought in retrospect. Like in the 80s, you couldn't just look shit up. You know what I mean?
Right.
You had to ask your buddy.
There wasn't an AI to hallucinate at you, okay? You had to go to the library and like get the microfiche or whatever, and you had to put it in the little machine and then use like a magnifying glass and like try and line up the dates. Conspiracy theorying in the 80s was hardcore.
It is when you look at movies back then, even about it. It's like there's always the guy on the projector looking at archived front pages of newspapers and stuff like that. It took a lot of effort to know jack shit back then. But that was the conspiracy. And so it could be something along those same kind of lines. Like they wanted to make a big change here. So it's like the long play in the process.
I see. Well,
wait till the penny comes back like a year from now. Like, fuck, we need the pennies back.
Like it's penny classic. That's what it's going to be.
They have no pennies in Australia, right?
No, there's most places have phased out penny coins. They still do them for digital transactions, and it's fine if you're paying with a card or whatever. But no one's just like running around with a pocket full of pennies. No one does that because everyone else has recognized for a long time that pennies, they aren't worth the trouble.
I mean, isn't that 99% of transaction these days are either on a credit card or just tapping these days? At least in the part of the world that we live in. And even in America, this is going to sound weird to say, America I feel like has caught up finally, where most of the places you're going, you tap to pay.
Yes, I think that COVID was oddly great for that, for the U.S., for that sort of a contactless payment and the tap to pay and the Apple Pay. There were so many stores that it felt like we're very late to the game in adopting that technology in the U.S. You'd go traveling somewhere and you'd go, this is so easy. This is wonderful. And then if you tried to pay with an American credit card or whatever, the tellers would all be very confused because it'd be like, it wants you to sign?
I guess I'll go find a pen, which we don't have back here.
They're like, what's wrong with your card? And you go, oh, no, that's normal. They're like, no, it's not. So, it was really good for the U.S. to catch up with all that stuff. And now catching up with the unadoption, I guess, of the penny. So all those penny stamping machines, you're going to have to get used to your blank slugs.
I had a thing, though, one time where it's very specific to us. We were coming back from the U.S., and I had my U.S. credit card as my default in Apple Pay, and I double-clicked, and I go, oh, it's the wrong one, and I put the phone out a little bit away from me to change to the right one, and I got it too close to the machine, and it goes, ding! And it was like, I forget what it was, we were buying groceries, but it's like the fee to convert from dollars to pounds, because I made an international purchase then, it was like, that little fuck up just cost me like $20.
Do you have any idea how many berries we were buying in that shop?
Right. $20 would have bought 4 more berries at that point. It would have been amazing. Hey, while we're talking about food stuff, can I tell you about something, an article that I read, which is, it's not even like a life pro tip or anything like that, or a life hack. It's just common goddamn sense. And I read this article and it enraged me. It wasn't an article, it's a post on Reddit, where a guy said, I just took a swig of either acetone or rubbing alcohol. And he had a photo where he was in a shop of something where he was working with somebody where there was acetone or alcohol. And they had put it in an Aquafina bottle.
Oh,
with
God.
the full label on it and everything. And there's like a couple of rules that I have when I work with people. I should have said yesterday, too, when we were talking about AI. One of the rules we have as a business, and when we contract with anybody, we actually have an AI clause in all of our agreements, which is, if you are ever going to use an AI tool, you need to come and talk to us about it first. It's not a blanket no, because a lot of things that are labeled as AI are really just kind of like marketing things. They're not really AI.
Yeah, it's a kind of a catch-all term right now.
But we always have to have a conversation about it. But one of the rules I have in my personal life is, don't put liquids, non-drinkable liquids, in drinking containers. And that should be a thing that should be so obvious to people. Like, even in the comments of this Reddit thing, people were like, well, why would you drink acetone? It's like, it's in a goddamn Aquafina bottle.
And
Aquafina is a bottled water brand.
And acetone is a clear liquid.
Yeah.
That is an easily confusable thing. It's not like some milky thing that looks like wrong water. No, it looks like water.
I was recently taken to task on another podcast by someone that I worked with for a really long time. And I just want to point out, too, that I did not grant access to my name, image, or likeness for this conversation. So my discussion of this does not imply an endorsement of this in any way whatsoever. Just protecting myself here. But they were complaining about how I leave, and you probably would complain about this too, sometimes half drank or like a quarter left in a can of Coke.
Oh gosh, you always have 2 or 3 cans of soda on the go at a given time.
Take it fucking easy.
No, it's fine. I've got a solution for this.
Do you know
Go
the
ahead.
reason for that?
No. Go ahead.
This person should have known. There's a reason for this in my life. I have a trauma that I'm processing for a long period. First of all, people apparently put acetone in fucking bottled water
Aquafina.
bottles. You got to watch out for those people fucking with you. There's people malicious who could spike your drink or whatever. Or you could be like me. I told the story years ago where I was at the beach one time and I set my Coke down. Probably was beer. And I went back, picked up my beer. I didn't pick up my beer. I picked up my buddy's spit cup.
Oh God.
And she's covering her mouth. Probably should. We're going to put a not safe for work warning on this. Let me tell you what it's like to drink out of somebody else's spit cup.
I don't need to know.
Okay.
I don't need to know.
You realize on the first swallow. That's when you realize that you've made a mistake. The problem is the first swallow doesn't disconnect from the second swallow and it drags it down with it. So you're like... One of the worst... Now, so now do you understand why maybe it's okay if I leave like 1/8 of a Coke left if I'm not entirely sure if that's mine? Do you understand what's going on up here with that trauma in my brain?
Do you think I failed to label my spit cup? No, I have a solution for that anyway, which is I never have to open a soda. I have my cup of ice and I just go through and I pick up a soda, and if it's like half full, it goes in the cup.
Yeah.
And I just go through, and then I recycle all the cans. So I'm basically like your little soda cleaner bot.
I also get to do that too. I like oh, there's a can of Coke on my desk, Coke Zero. And I'm like, oh yeah, and I pick it up, it's like, oh, look at the half full. What a treat. Enjoy this Coke. Forget about like botulism or whatever that just settles in out of the air.
Let's also note that you haven't learned your lesson, because the other day you took a sip out of one of my drinking cups and you go, what's in this Coke? I go, that's rum, and that's from yesterday.
Right. That was a nice shocker. Getting that. I had something the other day too where I was expecting to drink apple juice and I got milk. There's a mental component to taste that's just it does a lot of heavy lifting, and if you violate that, it's like your body's like, what just happened to me?
Right. It doesn't even have to be a disgusting thing. It's just not what I thought it was going to be thing.
Blech.
And that's plenty.
I told that story in a really nice way. If you want, there's an RTA out there about me drinking out of that spit cup.
Or we'll find it and we'll put it in the link down.
It's very graphic.
And then we will change the topic to something slightly less gross. For example, if you were waking up this morning, had a weird morning, people talking about spit cups, get weirding you out.
The government is in your house collecting your pennies for some reason? What's going on there?
All your pennies are flying away into the sky. Don't worry, you are definitely not having a weirder morning than some dude in Norway who woke up and there was a container ship parked in his garden.
What?
Yeah.
He must live on the coast, obviously.
He does. He lives on the coast, but a container ship ran aground and missed his house by feet.
Oh, my God.
Or because he's Norwegian, a meter.
Yeah, who do you call in that regard?
And he said his neighbor was actually like the one who like came and was like knocking on his door to like wake him up. He slept through this whole thing, this whole ship running aground. He slept through it, and he wakes up to his neighbor like banging on his door, and he's like, "It was 5 a.m. I don't like to open my door at 5 a.m.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
And so then he looks out his window, and there's a ship just ran aground. This is
I love Norwegian people because he's 100% right. Let's say he gets up and he answers the door, and the neighbor goes, "There's a cargo ship in your front yard." What's he gonna do, right?
What are you gonna do? Tell it to move?
Right.
Tell it it's illegally parked. So this was.
I got a tool for this in my shed. Hold on, let me just go get it.
And here's what's funny too. So the Cypriot flagged cargo ship, the NCL Sultan. They don't know what happened. They don't know why it went off course. But it's also not the first time that that's happened with that ship. It previously ran aground in 2023.
Did you watch that Ethan Hawke End of the World or something like that?
No.
I forget what it's called, or like I almost named that Blake Lively movie. It Ends With Us. It's something like that. But there was a whole like ship thing in there as well. That was one of these things.
Leave the World Behind.
Leave the World Behind.
Oh, that's the one. That was Julia Roberts, I think, where they hire they rent a house and they're at the beach, and then
I completely forgot that Julia Roberts was in that.
Then
wow.
there's I only know this from the trailer. Then there's these like ships and like there's stuff coming at the beach, and everyone is like, "Huh, that's interesting,"
right.
But it's not slowing down.
Right, but it's also so big in scale. We got scaled, by the way, on Amazon again. We should talk about that. But it's so big in scale that they can't work out whether or not it's coming. And then it just comes like right up on the beach, like straight at them.
Yeah.
There's some event that takes place. I was just going to say, it was a weird thing because I was really excited about it. It's like, kind of weird, trippy sci-fi stuff. Like
apocalyptic thriller.
A little bit mystery box in there, too, which sometimes if I know I'm going in for that, I'm okay with that.
Great cast. I mean, Julia Roberts, Ethan Hawke, Mahershala Ali.
I felt like it was like the pilot to a longer series that just never happened. It was like the strangest thing. I think it's based on a book, too. So I feel like maybe I should just go read the book at this point. Well, I think, and also sometimes it's like you don't know when some things are like maybe they're a series and they made a show or a series of books and then they made a digital series based on it, but then they just canceled it straight away because that's what they do with digital series now.
Right. It's like they got the first installment in and they go, oh, it didn't do good enough, so we're not doing the rest of the story.
Like I'm sure it didn't happen, but if they had canceled Silo after the first season, then it would have been the first half of the first book of a series of books.
Yeah.
And some people would have been like, oh, I didn't know there was a whole thing like built out here.
Like, oh, there was more to this? Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that didn't happen, but maybe this is that kind of thing. So I want to go check it out.
Yeah.
But I got scaled on Amazon.
You did, big time.
I bought some activated charcoal. It's one of those things I saw that you should have someplace in your cabinet. In case somebody eats something and they're not supposed to eat it, give them some activated charcoal to help remedy it.
Soaking up potentially toxic stuff, poisonous stuff that's like in your stomach.
Like acetone that somebody put in bottled water, bottle or something like that.
Just to have a nice sip of acetone and then some activated charcoal as a chaser.
It just looks like a little container, and it looks, oddly enough, it looks like another container we have of what's the other thing we've got?
Some kind of like citrate something or other, sodium citrate something for like a cooking experiment.
We were making American cheese.
Yes.
That's why we got that. But that's a little container, like a little margarine tub size. This thing is fucking gigantic, the one that came, but you have no idea when you're looking at it on Amazon how big this thing is. They should definitely have a standard like Reddit does where they have their banana for scale. They should have a thing. I know they put the measurements and they put the dimensions on it. I don't ever read that for something that I don't care what the dimensions are.
I'm really bad at things when it's as well. It's like 500 grams, and I'm like, about a pound. Okay, I'm actually not good at knowing what that means.
Well, a pound of something that's a powder too could be huge.
A pound of charcoal. I don't know what that is. Is a pound of charcoal big? Is that small? I'm not really sure. It turns out, by the way, that a pound of activated charcoal is quite large.
Once again, going back to Rooster classic story, when we moved into the 636 studio, which is the one that most people know Rooster Teeth from, I said, you know what? There's certain things I just don't ever want to do. I don't want to do any more like preparation or maintenance of this place, so I'm going to buy all the silverware that we're going to need, like this environmentally friendly bamboo recyclable silverware. So we don't have to wash dishes or anything. We just throw it in recycling, and we're all good. I'm sure since 2013 that's proven to be like horrible for stuff, but at the time it was very progressive. So we ordered 1,000 knives, 1,000 forks, and 1,000 spoons. Everything showed up. The spoons were like ice cream taster spoons. Like they weren't.
They were like perfectly shaped like normal spoons, but just much smaller.
They were like the size of your thumb, the entire spoon. So we had 1,000 of these tiny little spoons. It's like all my planning and preparation worked like exactly against me. And they stuck around forever. I was just like, just throw them away. They're recyclable. Just put them in the recycling bin and they'll be recycled.
Right. They're going to compost. It's going to be fine. They're made of bamboo. It's fine. It'll probably spread and grow across the land anyway because that's what bamboo does.
I'm all for not being wasteful. I don't think you should be wasteful. You should be really careful, especially like on what you're buying on the front end. Be careful about that stuff. But one of the most annoying traits a person can have too is when you're getting rid of stuff, and the person who just stands nearby and just goes, "Don't get rid of that. Don't get rid of that."
And you go, "Why?" And they go, "You might need it someday."
It's just
When am I going to need it?
Why do people do that? Like, why do they take that upon themselves to police what other people are throwing away?
Well, they were probably really hoping that you would just throw like a couple dozen office-wide ice cream parties to use up the spoon.
Maybe so. But it can be anything. It could be anything. It's like, oh, here's an old like PS2 serial port keyboard. Throw it away. Don't throw that away. It's like, do you want it? Can I give it to you? They're like, I don't want that, but you shouldn't throw that away.
Yeah,
don't throw that away.
What if you need to type on a PS2 one day?
That's the thing. That's a thing that some people do, and I've noticed it a lot in my life. There's just a person who stands right nearby and goes, don't throw that away.
The thing is, too, sometimes that works out really well, where like you have this thing that you've held on to for no reason whatsoever, and then you're like, oh, I need this thing, and you go and you find that thing, and you're a goddamn hero.
Oh, that's what I was going to say, by the way, about the tapping of the cards. It's like, it's so ingrained in our life now. I lost a credit card for 2 weeks and didn't know that I had lost it for 2 weeks because I didn't need it. And then I was going to get it for something, and it's like, this is not at all where I thought it was. And then we did a scour and found it.
Yeah, we had to scour the house, though, because after 2 weeks, that thing is out of memory.
Another place, by the way, where we complement each other really well, I pointed this out this week, where if we need to find something that was lost in the last 24 hours, that's your job.
Yeah.
Where are my car keys? Where's my shoes? Where's the kid's jacket?
It's underneath the baseball hat on that table in the back hallway.
Right. And mine is, if we bought something 4 years ago and we need a part for it or the manual, where is that? And I'm like, hold on.
I'll be right back.
We had a tricycle that we bought for the kids, and it like morphs from a little scooter, from a walker to a scooter to then a trike that they can pedal. But then obviously they don't need the pedals for most of it. So it's been in like baby form for the last 2.5 years for Evie.
And we finally decided to bust out the pedals so she can pedal her little trike around the house like a maniac.
And Ashley was like, I've been looking for these pedals forever. I go, they're on the bike. And she goes, no, they're not. And I go, oh, here's the slot where they're supposed to be.
I said, yes, I can see they're supposed to be on the bike. They're not on the bike.
And you were like, Ashley goes, I've been looking for these for a week. And I go, hold on. How long did it take me to find them?
You were back inside of 2 minutes.
2 minutes I had those things. I was like, here's your pedals. Here they are. Because I knew they were sorted away in my
and you found them
awful,
exactly.
ISO 9000 compliant system that I have.
It is true. It's like there should almost be an application form for relationships. Maybe this is where like dating sites can start to like pick up a little bit of slack here, right? Is like go ahead and fill in like what type of person you are. I'm the late person. I'm the on-time person. I can find anything that's been lost recently. I can find anything that was lost a long time ago. And then you match those people up.
No, I think that's fine. I think that would just work itself out in dating. Because if you're both the late person or like the ghosting person, like you make plans to go somewhere, nobody shows up, and then the relationship just naturally ends. Like after 60 minutes, there's just an empty table at some like Buffalo Wild Wings. It's like a sad story that nobody sees. It's like the relationship that fell in the forest when no one was around.
And the best part is neither of them knows that the other one didn't turn up.
Right. Everyone's happy. Everybody wins. That's probably most relationships at this point. And the punctual people show up on time. And they're like, oh, this is great. It all worked out.
Well, I want to say a big thank you to today's punctual people, Antonio and Patrick Pollenrotter. Thank you both so much for sponsoring this episode of our show at patreon.com/morningsummer.
All right. Well, that does it for us this week, ending May 23rd, 2025. We will be back to talk to you on Monday. We hope you will be here as well.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, we're recording the
Would have been better for yesterday. Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is
Morning Somewhere!
for May 22nd, 2025. My name is Bernie Burns. Sitting right over there. She is not going to be doing this in 2030. It's Ashley Burns. Say hi to Ashley, everybody.
What, you think I have a 5-year plan? I don't have a 1-year plan. Did you ever sit down with a manager and they're like, so what's your 5-year plan? You go, I mean, I guess like this, except like more money?
you paying me more? Ashley, occasionally we'll talk about things, and it makes me realize just how different two married people can be to one another. I've had a 5-year plan at every point of my life. There's points in time Where I'm thinking more about 5 years from now than I'm thinking about the current moment. I have to correct myself all the time.
Do you ever
So
go
it's weird.
like check your 5-year plan and see if you're like ahead or behind?
It's not like that. I don't have like bullet points or anything like that.
Look, you need to be happy that I don't have a 5-year plan because it allows you to go and do things like, hey, babe, you want to move to Scotland?
Which I've been thinking about for 5 years already.
Right, and then I go, yeah, sounds like fun. Let's go.
Yeah. After suggesting the boat, and you said absolutely not. I'm not going to live on a sailboat or whatever.
Like, Scotland does sound sane in comparison.
That was just that was the rabbit of, leading you into the correct decision. Yeah, but I had been working on this plan for probably more than a decade. In fact, somebody went back. Really weird set of coincidences, which is very appropriate for this week because I feel like this week is a week where a lot of different threads in my life that I've been looking at for a long time are all seemingly coming together at the same time. It's really strange. But somebody went back and listened to one of the old RT podcasts. And apparently in that podcast, we talk about you for the first time ever as a frag doll. We mention you by name. And in that same one, I talk about eventually moving to Scotland.
Look, I was a very big deal. I don't blame you for talking about me.
That's very weird, though, right? That those two things were mentioned in the same podcast.
Look, it's all part of your 5-year plan, baby.
Yeah, to eventually live outside the U.S.
You were putting that plan together from that podcast forward.
Like a 12-year plan at that point. Seeds of it. That's just so crazy. But yeah, so there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world, but I feel like maybe we should cover some like lighthearted, like goofy current events first.
Is this current events such as the Tush Push continues?
The Tush Push survived its ban, Ashley. According to ESPN, it survived its ban by 2 votes.
All right, so as noted, it was estimated to be a close vote incoming. It was, in fact, a close vote. And the Tush Push shall continue.
Stand down, everyone. I have my hands nowhere near the soundboard today. Stand down. Relax. It's going to be okay.
I'm also tense over here.
But I also learned in the ongoing saga of the Tush Push that because I guess it's associated, at least the controversy is associated with the Philadelphia Eagles so closely, it has another name as well.
Oh, okay.
The Push Tush is also called, in some circles, the brotherly shove.
Look, can I just say that doesn't make it sound like any better?
It all just sounds like a lot of euphemisms.
It does, doesn't it? It's like, oh, you're going to give him the old brotherly shove, huh?
It sounds like different things you'd put in your bio on Grindr.
I'm really, I like long walks on the beach, tush pushes, and brotherly shoves.
Occasional brotherly shove with consent. But yes, that will continue into the next NFL season. So if you just want to like get behind your quarterback and just jam him into the end zone, you can do that.
I have to say, I didn't really absorb your explanation yesterday.
Many people did not.
No, there was something distracting me, but I can't think what it was. I did go watch a video of it, and it helped to illustrate the point where it's basically they took the player, he's holding the ball, and they line up behind him like almost like a train, right? And
a scrum.
Push him through the opposition.
Just jam him through the defensive line, yeah.
Yeah, so apparently everyone needs to consult the Jaguars to
Among
figure out how one defeats the tush push or the brotherly shove.
Among other things that were hotly debated in our subreddit yesterday, that was one. The tush push of whether or not it should be legal.
That was the only debate I saw.
Yeah, that was the only debate I saw.
The only debate. Also happening, Cannes continues.
Yes, Cannes Film Festival continues. There was a disappointing headline that I saw, which was weird because it was one thing we've talked about in addition to the Cannes red carpet news, which is your most reliable source.
This is your number one source for Cannes red carpet reporting.
One of the things we talked about are the standing ovations that take place, and what we determined was the
Pan's Labyrinth, those 20 or 22 minutes.
Yes. Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth had 22 minutes. And it made me think, I do this a lot. Sometimes I shouldn't spend so much time thinking about things. But when I hear about something like that, I can't help but think, how does that work in practice? The
like
Cannes Film Festival.
You mean the rules for like what counts as a standing ovation?
Right. If there's a time and there's a record of the time, that means someone must be recording the time and keeping the time.
Right. There's someone there with a stopwatch.
Right.
So when do they start the stopwatch? Is it from when the first person stands up? Is it from when do they have to pass 50% of the audience standing before it is considered a standing ovation?
Right.
What is the frequency of the clapping required? how do you determine when the standing ovation is over? Is this last butt in seat, or is this when you lose the 50%? There have got to be guidelines here. Otherwise, everyone's going to try and just fudge the numbers.
Right. And then they got to keep a record of it and everything else. And it's always, too, it's like you said, when a standing ovation starts, it's always the one person who kind of like, we're standing up now. It's like, all right, I guess we're standing up for this. We're clapping. And then on the opposite end of that.
Okay, fine, here we go.
There's always the person who's like, I'm a little more discerning than the rest of you. I'm going to continue to sit. I'm going to save my standing ovation for something more appropriate.
Well, this voluminous gown does not stand.
Right.
Okay, I would love to, but I actually no. I mean, I can't. It does not stand. I don't have the pit crew's not here.
You're at like a third grader's play, and you're like, pal, you can stand up for this. It's okay. No one's going to know that you compromised your values standing up for our third graders. You can do it. And then I time them to see how long they do it. So. But speaking of can and third grade plays, Wes Anderson, who has a very kind of childlike, whimsical aesthetic to his films, I read a disappointing headline.
What's that?
And it was that Wes Anderson's film at Cannes was booed.
Wait, what?
They booed it. But should point out really quickly here, the comments immediately said, read the article. It says it got a standing ovation, but that there were boos in the standing ovation.
Oh, I see. Okay, so because that tracks more closely with what I read, which is that it got a 6.5 minute standing ovation, according to the Cannes timekeepers.
Yes, this is the new. I can't remember the name of it. It is the new
Wes Anderson film. Okay, go ahead.
Wes Anderson's Persephone Files. What is it?
The Phoenician Scheme.
The Phoenician Scheme, of course, not the Persephone Files.
That's the sequel.
Yes.
That's coming to Cannes next year.
I also wonder how it works, too, because I feel like there's cycles where I read negative news about things, and it's like I've been reading negative Wes Anderson news lately. Like, who's driving this? What's going on? Because I just read an article that Gene Hackman, who recently died, one of his last films that he was in years ago was Royal Tenenbaums.
Love that movie.
It was one of the last films in his filmography. And I'm reading these articles about how he didn't like being on the set for Royal Tenenbaums, and he was at odds with Wes Anderson the whole time, was upset about what he was being paid, to the point where Bill Murray, longtime actor in Wes Anderson films, Bill Murray had to step in and be the mediator and the voice of reason, and was commenting on another actor's behavior.
Weird.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Well, I imagine those kinds of things do tend to come up around these sort of media cycles, because if you're doing a media tour, right, you get asked about your current project, but also they don't want to talk just about the current project. They're all trying to get the story, right? So they're going to ask about other projects. They're going to try and create drama where they can.
That makes sense.
So I wouldn't be surprised that, like, old stories would come up in the publicity tour for this new movie.
Plus, Gene Hackman did just die.
The Persephone Files?
Yes, for the Persephone Files. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to go see it. I love Wes Anderson.
You look at 6.5 minute standing ovation. That's going to get a yes from me.
I'm going to tell you a personal story that might tie into Wes Anderson. This might really impress you here, actually.
Yes, okay.
Okay, this goes way back. So I was just recently down at the University of Texas at Texas Student Television, TSTV. And if you've listened to me on podcasts before, you probably have heard me mention that. That's where I literally got my start in media. I was a computer science student at the University of Texas. I wandered down to this student-run television station. It probably had like 7 film students running it. I said, can I come work here even though I'm not a film student? And the station manager, Ed, goes, you want to work here? And I said, yeah. And he goes, okay, whatever. And that was my start in media.
That was the interview process?
It literally is what started everything. But one of the things if it hadn't been for that place, I wouldn't have been able to get my hands on any equipment. It was way harder to get hold of cameras and editing equipment back then. But in order to use it, you had to get certified on it and take a class. And then once you were certified, you had an obligation to teach so many classes to certify other people.
Right. So like pay it forward, right? Like pay your certifications forward.
Kind of sounds like Amway when I describe it.
Teach those who come after you, as you were taught before.
But never-ending bragging rights for all time. One of my students in my editing class that I taught was Matt Hullum, who I worked with for decades after that.
And I'm sure you never let him forget that. I certified you.
You know who taught you how to edit.
Everything you know.
But bringing this back around, when I was down there this last time, somebody had gone through the archives, I guess, for some anniversary thing. Wes Anderson had taken the camera class there at one point because he wanted to check out a camera for he got paid to do something. He talked about it in a South by Southwest interview. So somebody in that group of 8 of us, somebody taught Wes Anderson how to use a camera. That's the way I'm going to put it on my resume.
Like I was gonna say, here's what happens, Bernie. You taught Wes Anderson,
Yes.
and then dare anyone to say otherwise.
I dare you to prove it wrong. I taught Wes Anderson composition and how to use the cameras at DSTV.
and he has since go on to develop, in my opinion, one of the most iconic aesthetics in filmmaking. Like, it's incredible for Wes Anderson in particular as a filmmaker, right? There's a lot like, you can go and you can be like, oh yeah, that's a Michael Bay explosion. With Wes Anderson, you can see a still frame, just any still frame from one of his movies, and you go, oh, that's Wes Anderson. It's such a unique visual style that he's developed that it's absolutely unparalleled, right? No one else is doing that particular style, and you see it and you can recognize it from a single frame. I mean, do you remember, to the point recently, this
It's
was a
pretty
little while
impressive.
back now.
It's really impressive that I agree with that completely.
It's incredible, and I love the style. It's so much fun. But it was, so iconic to the point where not that long ago, people were using AI to replicate it, being like X-Men except Wes Anderson. Although that was actually a very funny short from years ago too, is Wes Anderson's X-Men. But like, here's like
a human made one. Yeah.
A human one. But here's like all the Marvel films except made by Wes Anderson. Here's Harry Potter by Wes Anderson. And like everyone trying to just sort of copy that style. And what was amazing about that was, yes, they did, but it was still like, it's not quite Wes Anderson's level.
But you could see where it was heading.
Oh,
at the time.
absolutely.
So this is that weird thing where a lot of different threads of my life and my 5-year plans, they seem to be coming together this week.
I love it when a 5-year plan comes together.
Which is weird. It's not like a Nexus event, but it's weird when it's like you see moves that you've made or things you're doing. You're like, it's affirmation and confirmation. I think that moving in the right direction. Before we talk about this stuff though, which is probably gonna be a little bit more serious tone. Health scare.
Yes.
If you went to the Shakira concert, where?
In New Jersey. So yeah, this is just a little bit of a PSA for any listeners we may have who are big fans of Shakira, as am I. That if you attended her May 15th concert in New Jersey, there's someone there attended with measles.
And we talked about this before when we talked about COVID, that there's this R0 factor they use to measure infectious diseases. It's
And
basically
that's the number of what? The number of people that one infected person is expected to then go on to infect.
in an unprotected environment, yeah. And there's many people are vaccinated for measles. I assume the vast majority of people are vaccinated. But
Well,
like COVID,
especially Shakira fans. Like, that's mostly adults, right? And most of us adults
Yeah.
were vaccinated as kids. You get your MMRs. Although, quick PSA on that one as well. I learned this when I got pregnant. They topped me up on a lot of vaccines, saying a lot of your like childhood vaccines, yeah, they can wear down a little bit over
Wow.
the years. So, could be worth getting an MMR top up if you were at a Shakira concert this
well, it
week.
might be too late at that point. Yeah, but COVID had an R0 factor of something like 3 or 4, and measles was 16.
That's so high. So it's an incredibly infectious. So this is a person at a concert, which seems like the ideal sort of super spreader event with an enormously infectious disease. So just pay attention, everybody. This is like we've now left the West Texas outbreak, and now it's headed for Jersey.
Yeah, and this kind of comes together with other things as well, because years ago, January of 2020, I made this tweet where I said, if you're not paying attention to Wuhan, you might want to start paying attention to Wuhan, China, where the outbreak was first happening. And it was getting to the point where they were starting to lock down a city of 10 million people. And I think even that tweet, I said, I don't want to be an alarmist, but just
Pay
maybe start.
attention.
And a lot of people have come back to me over the years and credited me as saying, you were the first person I heard talking about what at the time was called Corona, but then eventually became COVID-19.
The Wuhan flu.
I have that as well in a group chat. I'm sure you have group chats with different people. I have one with some of my filmmaking
Bold
buddies.
of you to assume I talk to people, Bernie.
Oh, really? Well, that's a whole. So many threads coming together here. So much stuff to talk about today.
Okay.
But I have a group of filmmakers that I talk to in a group chat, and I get to reply to one of my own messages every now and then, because in like 2023, there was this article that came out that somebody put in the group chat, which was James Cameron's 5 to 10 year plan of the Avatar franchise. and how he was going to go all the way through Avatar 5 into like 2031 or something like that. And I replied instantaneously back to that. I replied, he's not going to make it. And someone said, it's James Cameron. You don't think he's going to make these movies? I go, no, he's not going to have enough time to do that. Somebody else will make Avatar 5 before him. And there's been all these developments in AI this week. Google did an I.O. event where they unveiled these new tools.
I thought you were going to talk about the book list.
Oh, right.
Did you hear about this? There's this summer book list that's been syndicated, and it's popped up in a bunch of newspapers. It's a list of 15 books that you should be reading this summer. Bernie, only 5 of the books exist.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yes.
I saw you said that to our group chat. I thought
did.
somebody just used ChatGPT to make the list, and it was a bad list. You're saying the books don't exist?
The books don't exist.
Oh my
No,
God.
it's not a bad list. It's that only 5 of the books even exist. So there was there's a novelist, Isabel Allende. She's on this list for Tidewater Dreams, a book she hasn't written. There's Percival Everett. He won the 2025 Pulitzer. He's on the list for a book called The Rainmakers. He hasn't written a book called The Rainmakers. There's only 5 books out of the 15 that are even real. So someone went, hey, ChatGPT, type up the 15 books that I should be reading this summer.
Can I ask you a question really quickly?
And then they just went and they just published it, and it got syndicated. No one checked this thing.
Was the Persephone Files by Wes Anderson on that list? That's what I want to know. The source material is the best on that. And then, it's weird that that just goes out and I'm not surprised that people use the tools. I'm not surprised. I'm surprised how little they check them, and they just go straight to press with them. Yeah,
it's just the sheer carelessness, right? To not even check if these books exist.
I all the time.
Wouldn't you check the Goodreads, or something to be like, okay, well, yes, Goodreads ratings agree that this is is going to be good on the list. Wouldn't you even check that level?
And you would think someone could be fired for doing this, but I guess the whole point is there's no person doing it, right? It's just the manager and the employees are already long gone, and the manager makes the mistake or whomever, and then who's left to fire anybody, for making the mistake?
It's crazy, it's just one of those many sort of stair steps where people are just using a thing and just don't care.
It's crazy to me that happens because when I'm writing an email, even these days, I check spelling in it. I don't take the spell checker's word for it. Half my Google searches are just one word because it knows I'm using it as a spell checker, essentially.
Right. We're talking about, Bernie, the kind of people who just go ahead and just have the person in the to line as they're drafting up that email. I was always taught, don't put the person in the to line until we are ready to hit the send button.
Even on replies, I erase their name and put it back in.
These are people who just go ahead and just CC the whole company and then go, oops. And that's it. And then for the rest of time, we're all stuck dealing with the email thread of someone going, can you please remove me from this thread? And someone else going, don't stop responding to this thread. You're just bumping it to the top. And now there's a 5,000 email chain of angry people across the company because someone just hit send.
You've had that then, I guess, because I've had that exact scenario where this was back when I worked for the telephone company. We would send out bursts of bills and stuff, and this was 2,000 people in one email burst where the person who sent it, this is early internet, we're talking 95, 96, and they CC'd all of the customers in the CC field.
Oh, no.
You could see all of their emails, and people kept going, take me off this list, and people saying, stop replying to the list. It goes, I told you to take me off this list. And it's every time there was a reply, it would get another 1,800 replies. We had to go into the server to kill the goddamn
I was
thing.
how do you fight that? How do you fight that email thread?
There's no way. I had another crazy version of that a decade and a half later. This is actually funny. I was a special guest at VidCon, and somebody who worked at VidCon CC'd in the CC field all of the special guests.
Oh, so that's a valuable list.
That was a pretty valuable list of emails to have, at least in 2013. And it was 150 people. VidCon has a lot of guests.
Yeah, a lot of panels.
So it would have been an important list of emails to have at that point in time. And it was the same thing. People were replying, going, get me all this people. But luckily, it was a small enough group of people where people worked out going, everyone stop replying to this, and it'll end. Stop it. Except for one person. What the hell? I'll say who it was. Steve Zaragoza. He would come back. Once a year, he would come back on the anniversary and mail everybody and go, hey, how's everybody doing on the list? kept it going.
Of course he would.
It's pretty funny. I admit that was pretty funny. But on the topic of the telephone company too, this was a weird thing in our subreddit. We haven't talked about this, right? Somebody posted my old business card in there
From Telenetwork.
from
Yeah.
like 1997.
I saw that. I'll put that in the link dump because it's a fun thing to see where it's like Bernie in his former life.
Dude, that was weird to see that. Yeah, it was weird. And that was back when I was VP, so when I left, I was president of the company. So yeah, that would have been like 1997, 1998.
That's an impressive business card to still have on hand.
That was. I think I might know who it was based on their username.
That's nearly as valuable as having the complete special guest list from VidCon 2013.
And they said it was just a weird thing they happened to have in a drawer, and they've had also kept up with Rooster Teeth over the years, and just a weird coincidence. And then, so they posted my business card. That was weird. So
That's
put that in the link dump.
Yeah.
Today that'd be great. But really quickly, we are going long already here. But I did want to talk about these threads that are all coming together. We did decide to make a big move and move outside the U.S. And it's so interesting to watch everything that's taking place in the U.S. from afar. Everything that's going on. Like this week in particular, there's things that are happening like just yesterday, there was all this turmoil in the stock market about the U.S. Treasury had their auction for bonds, and there was a lackluster response to it. And so bond yields are going back up, and now we're back talking about all that stuff again.
So the short version of that is that's not great.
Well, we've talked before about like how Bitcoin is acting like it's decoupling from the stock market and the U.S. dollar.
And this is a new thing. It used to be pretty close. Like if something happened in the stock market, the Bitcoin would drop. If something happened to the U.S. dollar, the Bitcoin would drop. It seemed for a long time very consistent in its performance with sort of the stock market, and obviously more volatile than that. But like overall, it reflected the sentiments of the market.
It acted like a tech stock, honestly.
Yeah.
And in fact, because it could be traded on the weekends, you would watch it dip on the weekend, and you knew the stock market would dip on Monday because they were tied together so closely. And we were talking about how even like Bitcoin maximalists, people who are all in on Bitcoin specifically, not just cryptocurrency, how they talk about, well, Bitcoin in the future will go to $1 million, dollars per coin. And I had to point out, and I think I've said this on this podcast too, it's like when people talk about that, they're also talking about a scenario in which the dollar is worth essentially nothing at that point in time. It's this weird like future post-apocalyptic or post-capitalist world where somehow Bitcoin is going to save the day. Don't agree with all that. But at the same time, we're starting to see Bitcoin start to act like that in practice. And there was a really clear example of that this week. So Bitcoin is back at its all-time high. Overnight, it hit $111,000.
That seems really high. That's the highest it's ever been against the dollar, right?
All-time high. So that's what you just said is a key point. So all this last week, it might have changed overnight, but I was noticing discussions in forums and on Reddit and places like that where people were saying, how come Bitcoin is back at its all-time high and no one's talking about it? They were posting like Google Trends of discussions about Bitcoin and how it's not the same spikes that it had during the previous all-time high.